Good morning, my dear students and friends. Welcome back to my class on policies biodiversity conservation. In series of the lecture, last time we discussed about the treaties, the formation of treaties, obligation of the treaties, and the type of the treaties. Now, today we will be discussing one of the treaty, that is the Convention on Biological Diversity and its objective. So, I am Professor Urus Ilyas, working in Department of Wildlife Sciences, teaching in the department since last 1.5 decade. Apart from my teaching experience, I am also intensively involved in the research. We have already developed one course, MOOCs, on MOOCs about the environmental studies, and that is the third most popular course of the university. So, thank you very much for hearing me again and again, and welcome back to Convention on Biological Diversity and its objective. So, why the Convention on Biological Diversity was needed? The short form of the Convention on Biological Diversity is the CBD. So, from here after I will be speaking the CBD. So, it means the Convention on the Biological Diversity. So, why we needed the CBD? We needed the CBD because of the rapid biodiversity loss. So, the urgent response to the alarming rate of species extinction due to deforestation, pollution and habitat destruction, global environmental impact, biodiversity loss. Ultimately, the loss of the biodiversity has far-reaching effect on ecosystem, climate and human well-being across the globe. If India is losing the biodiversity, it doesn't mean the US won't be affected. The whole country, whole nation, whole world will be affected because of the loss of biodiversity, because biodiversity doesn't see the boundaries, the political boundaries. It is for us. Sustainable development needed to balance economic growth with environment protection, ensuring resources are available for future generation. Equitable benefit sharing address issues of biopiracy by ensuring fair distribution of benefits from using genetic resources. Equit benefit sharing means if somebody is taking from the genetic material from one geographical location could be Aligarh in India. So, there should be a fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from that genetic material. So, that is the equitable benefit sharing. The nation, the state should have the sovereign right over their genetic products, whether it's a neem, haldi or whatever, rice, basmati. Production of traditional knowledge recognized and protected the value contribution of indigenous community to biodiversity conservation. We have to protect the traditional knowledge system of the community of the area. So, biological diversity is the degree of variation of life form within a given ecosystem, biome or an entire planet. Three levels at such biological diversity has been identified are species diversity, genetic diversity and the ecosystem diversity. So, there are three levels of the diversity: species diversity, genetic diversity and the ecosystem diversity. The Convention on Biological Diversity CBD 1992 defines biodiversity as the variable among living organisms from all sources including inter alia, terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystem and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species and the ecosystem. So, overview of the Convention of the Biological Diversity, the CBD, informally known as the Biodiversity Convention, is an international legally binding and multilateral treaty. We have already discussed about the type of treaties, the bilateral, regional and the multilateral treaty. So, the Convention on the Biological Diversity is a multilateral treaty because more than 3 countries signed the convention, and the CBD entered into force on 29 December 1993. The convention took place in 1992 and from convention to enter into the force take quite a long time because you have to get signature from the parties who want to be the party of the convention. So, that take time, and finalizing the draft, finalize the pro and causes, do and don'ts takes time. So, finally, it entered into the force on 29 December 1993. It is the international legal instrument for the conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its component, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of the genetic resources. So, it seeks to conserve the diversity of life on earth at all levels: genetic population, species habitat and ecosystem, and to ensure that this diversity continue to maintain the life support system of the biosphere overall. It recognizes that setting social and economical goal for the use of biological resources and the benefits derived from genetic resources is central to the process of sustainable development, and that this in turn will support conservation. This convention has got text. Every convention has got text. So, every convention has got text, and the text has got some body, some define this thing. So, there are 42 articles, 2 annexure, and the 2 annexure, annexure 1 is identification and monitoring. Annexure 2 is, there are 2 part of the annexure. Part 1 is arbitration and part 2 of annexure 2 is conciliation. One main body, conference of the parties. Conference of the parties are those parties which are the part of the convention, which are the signatory of the and attend the meeting at certain time interval, keep on attending the meeting at the, and that meeting is called as the COP, Conference of the Parties. The Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity is based in Montreal, Canada. The idea of CBD is to develop national strategy for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. To implement that, the convention does the following: asserting the intrinsic value of biodiversity, affirming the conservation of biodiversity as a common concern of the population, taking responsibility for conserving biodiversity in the state and that the state uses this biodiversity sustainability, affirming the state to put the biological resources as the sovereign right of the state, taking up precaution approach towards conservation of biodiversity, highlighting the vital role of local community and the women. In the biodiversity, the people also play an important role because they are the part of the biodiversity. So, highlighting the vital role of local community and the women, supporting access to technologies for developing countries and searching for provision for new and additional financial resources to address the biodiversity loss in the region. Now, come to the history of the convention. United Nations Environmental Programme's involvement ad hoc working group. When the idea was conceived, one ad hoc working group was formed. In November 1988, the UNEP convened at the ad hoc working group of experts on biological diversity to explore the need for an international convention on biological diversity. Definitely, if you are going to sign, if you are going to make any convention, we have to justify why we need the convention. For that, before any convention finalizes, the nation or the United Nations Environmental Programs made, if it is related to the environment, it makes the ad hoc working group so that they decide, they find out the requirement, the need of the convention. So, that was made in 1988, ad hoc working group of experts on biological diversity to explore the need for an international convention on biological diversity. Development of the convention, ad hoc working group 1989. In May 1989, 88 ad hoc working group was formed and they were supposed to explore the need of the convention. And then in May 1989, UNEP established the ad hoc working group of technical and legal experts to prepare an international legal instrument for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. The experts were to consider the need to share cost and benefits between developed and developing countries, as well as way to support innovation by local communities. It is not only that we have to make the convention, but we have to see the cost and benefits between the developed and the developing countries, as well as ways to support innovation by local communities. Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee was made in 1991. By February 1991, the ad hoc working group had become the International Negotiation Committee, because you have to talk to different countries, different states. So, by February 1991, the ad hoc working group had become the International Negotiating Committee. The committee was tasked with finalizing the international legal instrument, which culminated in the Nairobi Conference on the adoption of the agreed text of the Convention on Biological Diversity, that is on 22nd May 1992. That was the historical date when in the Nairobi the convention was adopted. So, Nairobi Conference for the adoption of the agreement text of the Convention on Biological Diversity took place on 22nd May 1992. So, it started with the conceive of the program, and for that ad hoc working group was made, and then technical and legal experts were involved to prepare international legal instrument, and on the basis of that 1991 ad hoc working group had become the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee, and finally this convention took place in Nairobi to adopt the text of the convention on 22nd May 1992. So, that was the convention, that was the Earth Summit 1992. Nairobi Conference, adoption of the agreed text was 22nd May 1992. The Nairobi Conference was a pivot moment in the history of the Convention on Biological Diversity, where the agreed text of the convention was adopted, setting the stages for its formal signing. So, by the time the convention took place during the Earth Summit, the text was prepared, text was complete. Rio Earth Summit opening for signature June 1992. May 1992, the Nairobi text was produced, and Rio Earth Summit opening of the signature, and that when the text was ready, it was opened for the signature by the states. The Convention on Biological Diversity was opened for signature on 5th June 1992 at the United Nations Conference on Earth and Development, the Rio Earth Summit. It remained open for signature until 4th June 1993, by which time it had received 168 signature. This was the record signature any convention received at the time of the June 1993. Ratification and entry into force. The convention entered into force on 29 December 1993, 90 days after the 30th ratification. This marked the beginning of a new era in international effort to conserve biological diversity. So, this is the map, this is the figure taken from the internet on the CBD convention site. So, these are the parties who signed the convention, and United States and the part of this world did not. They only signed, they not ratified, and non-signatory are not much. So, the whole world needed this convention badly, and that is why they signed and they ratified, while this part of the world did not sign and ratify. It means United States did not sign and ratify. So, institutional arrangement of the CBD, the governing body, Conference of the Parties, COP, there are total 193 parties to keep under review the implementation of the convention and to steer in development meeting of COP are held every 2 years. After the convention, every convention has the conference of the party for a certain time interval. And in this case, the COP take place after every 2 years to update the text, to update, resolve the issues. Other important functions of the COP includes adoption of the budget, the consideration of the national report, the adoption of the protocol or annexes, and the development of guidance for the financial mechanism. The subsidiary body on scientific technology and technology advisory, SBSTTA, it is an open-ended intergovernmental scientific advisory body to provide the COP with advice and recommendation on the implementation of the scientific, technological and technical aspect of the convention. So, SBSTTA is actually the subsidiary body of scientific, technological and technical advice. So, this basically gave the advice for recommendation on the implementation of scientific, technological and technical aspects of the convention. There are three main objectives of the CBD. The first is the Convention on the Biological Diversity, two is the sustainable use of its component, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of the genetic resources by allowing appropriate. The Convention of the Biological Diversity, the first objective, ensuring that ecosystem, species and genetic diversity are maintained and protected. Sustainable use of component of biodiversity is integrate consideration of the conservation and sustainable use of biological resources into national decision making, encourage cooperation between government authorities and the private sector in developing method for sustainable use of biological resources. The third and the most important objective of the convention is the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of the genetic resources, and appropriate access to genetic resources, and appropriate transfer of relevant technologies, and an appropriate funding, thereby contributing to the Convention of Biological Diversity. So, these are the three main objectives of the convention. These are the three only objectives of the convention, and there are, after the convention, there are two protocols. The Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety that entered into force on the 11th September 2003. In my earlier lecture also, I discussed about the Cartagena Protocol. If the live specimen is moving from one place to another place, there should be the government should ensure the biosafety. The Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing entered into force in 2011. That if we are using some product, that should be so the nation should have the sovereign right over the product, and whatever benefits arising from the product should be shared with the area where with the nation from where the genetic material has been obtained. Importance of CBD: for the first time, it recognized that the Convention on Biological Diversity is a common concern of humankind and is an integral part of the development process. It covers all ecosystem species and genetic resources. It links traditional conservation effort to the economic goal of using biological resources sustainability. It sets principles for the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of genetic resources, notably those destined for commercial uses. It also covers the rapidly expanding field of biological addressing technologies, development and transfer, benefit sharing and biosafety. India and the Convention on Biological Diversity. India is not only the party but also ratified the convention. Ratification: India signed the CBD on 5th June 1992, the day when the convention took place, and ratified it on February 18, 1994. This makes India one of the early signatories of the convention. India enacted the Biological Diversity Act in 2002, the Biological Diversity Rule in 2004 in persuasion of the Convention of Biological Diversity. So, every nation had to make their own rules and regulation for the implementation of the convention. So, India had the Biological Diversity Act 2002 and Biological Diversity Rule 2004 implemented in its country. National Biodiversity Authority (NBA) established in 2003 under the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. The NBA is responsible for implementing the provision of CBD in India. It regulates the use of biological resources and associated knowledge, ensuring fair and equitable benefits sharing. India adopted its NBAP National Biodiversity Action Plan in 2008, which outlined the strategies and action for biodiversity conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. It was revised in 2014 to include new targets and align with the CBD's Achieve Biodiversity target. The key law related to the biodiversity in India includes the Indian Forest Act 1927, that is the British law, British Act 1927, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Environmental Protection Act 1986, Biological Diversity Act 2002 and Forest Right Act 2006. So, the CBD has been adopted by India, not only adopted, not only signed, not only ratified, but we made our own law on the basis of the Convention of the Biological Diversity, and still we are governed by the rules and regulation of the CBD. So, thank you very much for the CBD. We will be meeting in our next lecture. By then, thank you very much.